away from the counter. You're not leaving with that fake check.
My name is Special Agent Regina Cross, FBI. My credentials are in my clutch. Verify them.
FBI?
Yeah, sure.
Turn around.
Hands behind your back.
Touch me and you're committing false imprisonment on a federal agent. Call your supervisor, right?
Derek Vance had served as the head of loss prevention at the Gilded Oak Promenade for just under 3 years when he made the decision that would implode his life and cost the property management firm a staggering $4.6 million. He was 29 years old, built like a linebacker who had stopped training but kept the attitude, and possessed a dangerous combination of limited authority and absolute certainty in his own gut instincts. He walked the marble corridors of the high-end shopping center with his chest puffed out, a tactical radio clipped to his shoulder, believing he was the thin line between order and anarchy. But on a bright Thursday afternoon, his judgment wasn't just flawed, it was catastrophic. The incident began not with a crime, but with a phone call from a boutique manager who shared Vance's distorted view of the world. The subject of their suspicion was Special Agent Regina Cross, a 22-year veteran of the FBI who was spending her day off doing something incredibly mundane, shopping for a retirement gift. What Vance did next, ignoring federal identification, mocking a decorated law enforcement officer, and dragging her in handcuffs through a crowded atrium, would serve as a brutal lesson on the price of unchecked bias. Before we get into the details of this disaster, I want to ask, where are you tuning in from today? If you appreciate stories that expose the truth and demand accountability, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps us keep the lights on and the stories coming. The Gilded Oak Promenade is the crown jewel of retail in the metro area. It is not a place for quick errands. It is a destination. Sunlight streams through a massive vaulted glass ceiling, illuminating polished travertine floors, indoor fountains, and rows of stores that sell handbags costing more than most people's cars. It was 11:45 a.m. on a Thursday in October. The lunch crowd was just beginning to filter in lawyers from the nearby towers, medical professionals, and ladies who lunched. The atmosphere was hushed, expensive, and controlled. Special Agent Regina Cross fit the environment perfectly, though the security team would later claim otherwise. She had spent the last decade in the public corruption unit, taking down dirty politicians and compromised judges. Before that, she did 6 years in violent crimes and major offenders. She was 52 years old, carried herself with the kind of quiet, erect posture that comes from 2 decades of carrying a badge and a firearm, and she was dressed in a tailored navy pantsuit that screamed professional. She was currently unarmed, her service weapon locked in the safe at home, her badge and credentials tucked discreetly into her clutch. She wasn't there to work cases. She was there to honor her mentor, a senior agent retiring after 35 years. Regina had done nothing to warrant a second glance, let alone a security intervention. She moved with purpose, spoke softly, and minded her own business. But for Derek Vance, who spent his days watching surveillance monitors and praying for action, business as usual, wasn't enough. He had applied to the police academy 3 times. He had been rejected 3 times. Psychological evaluations cited issues with impulse control and over-aggression. So he built his own little kingdom at the mall where he could play police chief without the oversight. When his radio crackled to life that afternoon, he didn't hear a request for assistance. He heard an opportunity to prove the police recruiters wrong. He was about to walk into a buzzsaw of federal litigation, and he was doing it with a smile on his face. Regina Cross stood inside Monarch & Company, a luxury watch retailer that smelled of leather and expensive cologne. The store was quiet, the glass cases gleaming under halogen spotlights. She had done her research. She was looking for a specific vintage-style aviator watch, a piece that retailed for $8,500. It was a significant sum, but between the group collection from the office and her own contribution, they had the funds covered. She stood at the counter waiting for the store manager to return from the back room with the timepiece. The manager was Lorna Higgins, a 35-year-old woman who prided herself on being the gatekeeper of luxury. Lorna had been working retail since high school and had developed a 6th sense for customers, or so she told her district managers. In reality, Lorna's sense was nothing more than a collection of prejudices wrapped in a polite smile. When she looked at Regina Cross, a black woman standing alone looking at one of the most expensive items in the store, Lorna didn't see a federal agent. She saw a risk. Lorna returned with the watch box, placing it on the velvet mat with a hesitation that Regina caught immediately. "It's a beautiful piece," Lorna said, her smile tight, not reaching her eyes. "Are we thinking of financing today? We have a store card application that takes about 20 minutes. "No, thank you," Regina said, her voice calm and pleasant. "I'll be paying with a cashier's check from the Federal Employee Credit Union. I have it right here." She reached into her bag and produced the check already made out to the store for the exact amount along with her driver's license for verification. Lorna stared at the check. In her mind, the narrative was already written. Cashier's checks could be forged. The bank name, Federal Employee Credit Union, sounded made up to her uneducated ear. And the woman, she just didn't fit the Monarch and Company demographic, which usually consisted of older white men in golf attire or young tech millionaires in hoodies. Lorna picked up the check, holding it up to the light theatrically, then looked at the license. The name matched. The photo matched. But Lorna wasn't satisfied. "I'm going to need to verify this," Lorna said, her tone dropping several degrees in warmth. "We've had a lot of fraud lately. Sophisticated fraud." "I understand." Regina nodded, accustomed to scrutiny in her line of work, though usually from criminals, not shop clerks. "Take your time. You can call the bank directly if you need to." Lorna took the check and the license into the back office. But she didn't call the bank. She didn't run the check through the verification system. She looked through the sliver of the door at Regina, who was checking emails on her phone, looking relaxed. That relaxation irritated Lorna. It felt like arrogance. It felt like someone getting away with something. Lorna picked up the phone and dialed a number she had on speed dial. Not the local police, who always asked too many questions, but mall security, specifically Derek Vance's direct line. "Derek," Lorna whispered urgency, injecting drama into her voice. "It's Lorna at Monarch. I have a situation. A woman is in here trying to pass a fake cashier's check for $8,000. She's acting nervous, pacing around. I think she's going to run if I confront her. I need you down here now." It was a lie. Regina wasn't pacing. She was standing still. She wasn't nervous. She was bored. But Lorna knew what words would trigger Derek Vance. She was winding up a toy soldier and pointing him toward the enemy. Derek Vance didn't ask for details. He didn't ask if the check had been run or if the customer had actually committed a crime yet. He heard "fake check" and "nervous," and his adrenaline spiked. This was it. This was the big bust. He slammed the phone down in the security dispatch center, startling the two junior guards eating lunch. "Let's go," Vance barked, grabbing his utility belt, which was weighed down with a flashlight, handcuffs, pepper spray, and a baton, everything but a gun. "Lorna's got a paper hanger at Monarch. Big money. We're taking her down." This wasn't the first time Vance had mobilized like a SWAT team for a customer service issue. His personnel file was a graveyard of complaints that management had swept under the rug. There was the time he tackled a teenager for looking like a shoplifter, only to find the kid had receipts for everything in his bag. There was the incident with the Hispanic grandfather he detained for an hour because he didn't understand the language and assumed the man was trespassing. In every case, Vance justified his aggression as proactive enforcement. He claimed he was keeping the mall safe. His bosses, worried about liability, but more worried about the cost of replacing him, simply wrote him up and told him to tone it down. He never did. Vance marched through the mall, flanked by his two junior guards who looked uncomfortable but followed his lead. Vance walked with a heavy, stomping gait. He wasn't looking to de-escalate. He was looking for a confrontation. He had already convicted Regina Cross in his mind. She was a scammer, a grifter, someone trying to steal from the high-end tenants he was sworn to protect. The narrative was simple, clean, and completely wrong. As he approached Monarch and Company, he slowed down, signaling his team to flank the entrance. He wanted to trap her. He adjusted his belt, puffed out his chest, and pushed through the glass doors. The air in the store changed instantly. The quiet luxury was replaced by the heavy, suffocating presence of aggressive authority. Regina heard the door open and turned. She saw 3 uniformed security guards blocking the exit. The lead guard, Vance, was staring at her with a look she had seen on the faces of low-level enforcers in organized crime syndicates, a mix of contempt and eagerness to inflict pain. She didn't feel fear. She felt a weary resignation. She knew exactly what was happening. She had investigated hate crimes and civil rights violations. She knew the look of a man who had decided she was guilty before he even spoke a word. "Is there a problem?" Regina asked, her voice steady. Vance marched right up to the counter, invading her personal space. He stood 6 inches from her, smelling of stale coffee and aggression. "Yeah, there's a problem. The problem is you trying to pass bad paper in my mall." Regina looked at Lorna, who was peeking out from the back room, looking vindicated. "The check is valid. It's a cashier's check from a federal credit union." "If you call the number—" "I don't need to call anyone," Vance interrupted, his voice booming in the small store. "I know a scam when I see one. You think you're the first person to come in here with a printer-made check and a sob story, hand over the ID. The real one." Regina Cross took a slow breath. She knew the procedure. Do not reach quickly. Do not escalate. Use verbal commands. Establish authority. "Officer," she said, using the term loosely to appeal to his ego. "My name is Special Agent Regina Cross with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The identification the manager has is my driver's license. I also have my federal credentials in my bag. I am going to reach into my bag slowly and show them to you. This is a misunderstanding that we can clear up in 10 seconds. Vance laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. "FBI right. And I'm the director of the CIA. You think I haven't heard that one before? You people always have some story. You're a diplomat, you're a doctor, you're a federal agent. Just stop lying." "I am not lying," Regina said, her tone hardening. She wasn't just a shopper anymore. She was a senior agent being obstructed. "I am going to show you my credentials." She moved her hand toward her clutch. Vance put his hand on his baton. "Don't reach for anything," he shouted. Regina froze. "I am telling you I am a federal agent. You are interfering with a federal officer. If you touch me, you will be facing federal charges. Do you understand?" Vance leaned and his face red. "I don't care what you printed off the internet. Anyone can buy a leather wallet and a fake badge online for $20. I see it all the time. You're not FBI. You're a con artist, and you're coming with me." "Check the credentials," Regina demanded, her eyes locking onto his. "If you are real security, you know how to verify a federal badge. Look at the holograms. Look at the kinogram. Call the field office. The number is 206-555-0199. Ask for the watch commander." Vance ignored the specific details. To him, her knowledge of the system was just proof she was a professional criminal. "I'm not calling anyone. You're trespassing, you're attempting fraud, and now you're resisting detention." "I am not resisting," Regina said, clearly ensuring the store's security cameras picked up the audio. "I am attempting to identify myself. You are refusing to look at my identification." "I've seen enough," Vance sneered. He turned to Lorna. "Give me the check and the license. We're holding it as evidence." Lorna handed them over, her hands shaking slightly now. She hadn't expected the woman to be so confident. Usually scammers ran. This woman stood like a statue. Vance turned back to Regina. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." "You are making a grave error," Regina said, not moving. "This ends your career, I promise you that." Yeah, tell it to the judge." Vance didn't wait for her to turn. He reached out and grabbed her arm, his grip bruisingly tight. He wasn't following protocol. He was asserting dominance. Regina Cross had been trained in defensive tactics at Quantico. She knew how to break a hold, how to incapacitate an attacker, and how to disarm a threat. But she also knew that if she used any of those skills on a uniformed security guard in a crowded mall, the headline wouldn't be "Agent Defends Herself." It would be "Black Woman Attacks Security." She had to endure. She had to let him dig his own grave. "I am complying," Regina said loudly. "Do not torque my arm." Vance didn't listen. He spun her around with unnecessary force, wrenching her shoulder. He kicked her legs apart. "Stop resisting," he yelled, playing to the audience he knew was watching. "I am not resisting," Regina shouted back. He slapped the handcuffs on her wrists. He ratcheted them down too tight. The metal bit into her skin, pinching the nerve. Regina winced, but didn't cry out. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. "You're under arrest for fraud and trespassing," Vance announced. "You do not have the authority to arrest me," Regina said through gritted teeth. "You are private security. You can detain only if you have observed a felony. You have observed nothing but a woman buying a watch." "Shut up," Vance grunted. He grabbed her by the bicep and yanked her toward the door. Shoppers had gathered outside the glass storefront. Phones were out. The red recording lights were blinking. Vance saw them and puffed up even more. He wanted them to see. He wanted them to see him taking out the trash. "Folks, clear the way," Vance shouted. "Just another scammer trying to rip off honest businesses. Nothing to see here." Regina looked directly at a young man filming with his phone. "My name is Special Agent Regina Cross. I am being unlawfully arrested by Gilded Oak Security. I have identified myself as FBI. Please record this." "Record." Vance shoved her forward. "Keep moving. Stop talking." "He refused to verify my credentials," Regina yelled to the crowd. "He is claiming my ID is fake without checking it." "It is fake," Vance yelled back, losing his composure. "It's a fake ID. She's a liar." The accusation hung in the air. Fake ID. It was the shield Vance used to protect his bias. If the ID was fake, he was a hero. If the ID was real, he was a villain. So in his mind, it had to be fake. It was the only reality he could accept. Standard procedure for Gilded Oak Security was to keep a detained subject in the store until police arrived, or to take the back service corridors to the holding office. This was done to minimize disruption and protect the privacy of the individual, just in case, however unlikely, they were innocent. Derek Vance ignored this procedure completely. He marched Regina Cross right into the main atrium. He wanted the perp walk. He wanted to parade her past the fountain, past the coffee shop, past the high-end department stores. He wanted everyone to see that Derek Vance was on the job. They walked for 5 minutes. It was a long, humiliating procession. Regina kept her head up, her face a mask of stone. Inside, she was memorizing details. She noted the time on the atrium clock, 12:15 p.m. She noted the names of the stores they passed. She noted the grip on her arm, which was cutting off circulation. She noted the comments from the crowd. What did she do? Probably stole something. She looked so professional, though. You never know with these people. These people. The words stung, but they also fueled her resolve. This was why she did the job. This was why she fought corruption. Because the system was fragile, and people like Vance were the cracks where justice fell through. They finally reached the elevators to the basement level. Vance shoved her inside, followed by his silent, nervous subordinates. The doors closed, shutting out the public, but the damage was done. The video was already uploading to TikTok, to Twitter, to Instagram. The caption, "Mall Cop Arrests, FBI Agent Wild Seen at Gilded Oak." In the basement, they entered the security office, a dingy fluorescent-lit room that smelled of sweat and floor wax. There was a small holding cell, really just a chain-link cage with a bench. "Get in," Vance ordered, unhooking the cuffs just to shove her into the cage, then slamming the door. Regina rubbed her wrists. There were deep red indentations, likely bruising. "I need you to call the Seattle Police Department immediately," she said, "and I want a supervisor." I am the supervisor, Vance gloated, sitting down at his desk and putting his feet up. And the cops are already on their way. I can't wait to see their faces when I hand over a federal imposter. You are going to regret this, Derek, Regina said, reading his name tag. You have no idea how much. Vance just laughed and opened a can of energy drink. He felt invincible. He had his prize in the cage. It took 20 minutes for the police to arrive. 20 minutes of Vance making jokes to his guards, mocking Regina's costume and ignoring her requests for water. When the door opened, 2 uniformed officers entered. One was a young rookie. The other was Sergeant Miller, a 55-year-old veteran with weary eyes and a mustache that had seen better days. Miller knew Vance. He didn't like Vance. "What have you got, Derek?" Miller asked, sounding tired already. "Dispatcher said you have a high-value fraud in custody." "Yeah, caught her red-handed at Monarch," Vance said, standing up and handing over the plastic bag with Regina's things. "Tried to pass a fake cashier's check, and get this, she claims she's a Fed. Showed me some fake badge she probably bought on eBay." Miller took the bag. He looked through the clear plastic. He saw the wallet. He saw the badge case. He didn't open it yet. He walked over to the cage. He looked at Regina Cross. He looked at her suit. He looked at her demeanor. Then he looked at her wrists, already swelling. "Ma'am," Miller said, his tone respectful. "I'm Sergeant Miller. Can you tell me your name?" "Special Agent Regina Cross, FBI, Seattle Field Office. Financial Crimes Division, badge number 4922. My credentials are in that bag. The check is legitimate. This man refused to verify anything and assaulted me." Miller looked back at Vance. "You didn't run the name?" "I didn't need to," Vance scoffed. "Look at her. She's not a Fed." Miller opened the bag. He took out the leather credential case. He opened it. He felt the weight of the badge. He ran his thumb over the raised seal. He held the ID card up to the light, checking the holographic overlay. He had seen hundreds of these. He knew the fakes. They felt light, cheap. This felt heavy. This felt real. Miller's face went pale. He turned to the rookie. "Get the key. Now." "What?" Vance stepped forward. "Sarge, don't fall for it. It's a good fake, but—" "Shut your mouth, Derek." Miller snapped his voice, whipping like a lash. "You idiot. You absolute idiot." Miller unlocked the cage himself. He swung the door open. "Agent Cross, I am so sorry. Please step out." Regina stepped out, rubbing her arms. "Sergeant, I want this man arrested for assault and false imprisonment. I want a photographer here to document these injuries, and I want the watch commander at the FBI notified immediately." "Done, done, and done," Miller said. He handed Regina her credentials with 2 hands like an offering. Vance was blinking rapidly, the color draining from his face. "Sarge, what are you doing? She's playing you." Miller turned on Vance. "Derek Vance, turn around and put your hands behind your back." "What?" Vance's voice cracked. "You arrested a federal agent," Miller said, pulling his handcuffs out. "And you didn't even bother to call it in because you were too busy playing hero. You're done." The click of the handcuffs on Vance's wrists sounded like a thunderclap in the small room. He looked at Regina, his eyes wide with a sudden, terrifying realization. The fake ID wasn't fake. The scammer wasn't a scammer. And his kingdom was crumbling around him. The fallout was swift, brutal, and public. The video of Regina Cross being marched through the mall went viral before she had even left the police station. By the evening news, the headline, "Mall Security Arrests Black FBI Agent," was trending globally. Regina Cross didn't just want an apology. She wanted a precedent. She hired one of the top civil rights firms in the country. The lawsuit filed against the Gilded Oak Promenade, the property management company, the security firm, and Derek Vance personally was a masterpiece of legal aggression. The charges were extensive. False arrest, false imprisonment, assault and battery, defamation of character, intentional infliction of emotional distress, violation of the Unruh Civil Rights Act, and most damningly racial profiling. The evidence was insurmountable. The security camera footage from the store proved Regina was calm and compliant. The mall footage showed the excessive force and the perp walk. The deposition of Lorna Higgins revealed she had violated company policy by not verifying the check before calling security. The deposition of Derek Vance was a disaster. Under oath, he admitted he assumed the ID was fake based on his experience, but could not articulate what about the ID looked fake other than the person holding it. The defense lawyers didn't even try to go to trial. They knew a jury would destroy them. They settled. The total settlement was $4.6 million, $3 million from the security firm's insurance, $1.5 million from the mall management company, $100,000 from Monarch & Company. Derek Vance was fired immediately. He was also charged criminally with assault and unlawful restraint. He pleaded down to a misdemeanor to avoid jail time, but his record ensured he would never work in security or law enforcement ever again. He was last heard of working in a warehouse far away from the public. Lorna Higgins was terminated for cause. Her name became toxic in the luxury retail world. She moved back to her hometown, unable to find work in the city. Regina Cross donated a portion of the settlement to a legal defense fund for victims of racial profiling who didn't have a badge to save them. She retired 2 years later exactly as planned, with her full pension and her dignity intact. But as we close this story, we have to sit with the uncomfortable silence of the what if. What if Regina Cross had been a school teacher? What if she had been a nurse? What if she hadn't had that badge in her purse or the knowledge of the legal system to protect her? Derek Vance saw a black woman and decided she was a criminal. He saw a federal badge and decided it was a prop. His bias was so deep that it overrode the physical evidence in front of his eyes. $4.6 million is a lot of money, but it cannot buy back the humiliation of being paraded in chains for the crime of existing. It reminds us that for some, no amount of success, no suit, and no credential is enough to shield them from the assumption of guilt. What do you think should happen to security guards who make these kinds of mistakes? Should they face mandatory jail time? Let me know in the comments below. And if you believe that justice shouldn't depend on whether or not you carry a badge, please like this video and share it. We need to keep telling these stories until the pattern changes. Thank you for watching and stay safe out there.